Just wanted to let you know that this workshop is being recorded.
Creativity to stay connected.
And if you would please silence your microphone. We're happy to have everybody have an opportunity to use their voice, but it's easier for us if microphones are silenced until you have something to offer, or until you want to type something in the chat.
Today, as we celebrate our Red Cross family, we also share more information about.
Bethany and I will be monitoring the chat and making sure that we can alert Adam if anybody has a question. Finally, if you raise your hand virtually, we'll know that you're looking to get connected, and we're happy to keep you involved in that conversation. So Bethany, would you like to talk a little bit about the class, and then we'll move forward?
Hi, my name is Bethany Stravato. I am a junior at Slippery Rock University. I'm a dance major and a philanthropy and nonprofit management major. I am a student aide in the office with Alice. And this semester, I'm part of the Empowered to Serve class. And this class has helped to put on this presentation today and another one today for the students. In class, we're learning about our own purpose and our journey, and figuring out how to explore those skills in life and our future. So today, we welcome Adam Leipzig. He is an internationally recognized media executive, entrepreneur, educator, and author. He has had a unique career because it has been evenly divided between nonprofit and for-profit organizations. Adam served as a senior executive at Walt Disney Studios, a giant for-profit, as a president of National Geographic Films, a giant nonprofit, and has guided dozens of organizations and companies to craft high-impact media stories as an independent advisor. He is a professionals faculty at UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business. Along the way, Adam has made 35 films that have disrupted expectations, including March of the Penguins, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Dead Poets Society, and Titus, A Plastic Ocean. One of his most recent documentaries has inspired more than 100 new laws around the world and was invited to the United Nations. We are so happy to have you here today, Adam, and we have all been looking forward to this workshop. So Adam, what is the secret to a great story?
Welcome. I will need to make sure, Adam, I think you're on mute.
How many times have we heard you're on mute in the past year? To answer your fabulous question, Bethany, Alice, everybody, thank you so much for having me here. It's great. But to answer your question, may I tell you a story? And in fact, can I tell you two stories? Here, the first story is, this is about 6 months into the pandemic lockdown, a medium-sized healthcare nonprofit that was a regional healthcare nonprofit was not having good financial times. It was financially really badly hit by all the changes of resources and the changes of customer behavior in the pandemic. The executive director gathered everyone together. This healthcare nonprofit, between full-time and part-time staff, employed between 250 and 275 people. Gathered everybody together in a big Zoom meeting like this. If it had been pre-lockdown, this would have been an all-hands meeting in an auditorium somewhere. This was in a Zoom auditorium. The subject was, we have to do a reorganization if we're going to make it through. And she got up on the screen. Her Zoom jockey spotlighted her, so her face was full frame. And she said, we're going to do this reorganization, and then proceeded to explain how the reorganization was going to make the nonprofit stronger, healthier, better, and more able to fulfill its mission. That presentation did not go over very well. Why? Any ideas why there was a lot of dissatisfaction after she was done? And you can unmute and talk if you feel like it.
Everybody fears change
Pardon me?
because everybody fears change.
Everybody fears change. And when you hear your group is going to do a reorg, what's the first thing you think about?
Downsizing.
Jobs.
Right. And if they downsize, what might happen to you?
Lose my job.
You could lose your job, your benefits, everything.
Mhm.
So it didn't go well because she wasn't talking at the level that people needed to hear. Now let me tell you, and these are both true stories, and I've changed just a couple of details. But here's another true story. This is during the pandemic. A community organization had made a really significant transition in its app development to serve its community members better. They developed a custom app, and the amount of memberships had gone up 5x over 6 months. The executive director was thrilled, and the executive director called the community manager and said, "We're about to have a board meeting. Let's do a presentation about what we've done with this app at the board meeting." They got together this board meeting. It's a 1-hour board meeting. You know how boards are. People are very busy. It's hard to schedule them. The community manager called in the person who had coded the app. And the person who had coded the app began to make a technical presentation about how the app had been coded, the coding language that had been used, the technical issues and plugins that they had addressed and managed to resolve. And after about 10 minutes, the community manager got a Zoom nudge from the executive director that says, "Can we move on, please?" And that's a presentation that just did not go well either. Why do you guys think that presentation didn't go well?
Audience was not tech savvy.
The audience wasn't tech savvy. And does the board really care about app plugins? Like, that's not what a board cares about, right? Now, the reason I start with both of those stories is because every time when we are listening to any kind of information, when we're hearing any kind of presentation or any kind of story or storytelling, we are listening to it at multiple levels of understanding at the same time. And this is based on work that a semanticist named S.I. Hayakawa did in the 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s. And he had a revelation about how humans process information. His revelation is that we process information at different levels of abstraction simultaneously. Highly abstract information, like what that executive director did at the beginning in that first story about how the reorganization is going to make this hospital system better and better and better. That's very highly leveled abstract information. In the second story, the board was being presented with very ground level information, very much in the weeds, very detailed information. And if your audience doesn't care about the level of information that you are explaining, then they can't really listen to you. They throw up walls, they ask you questions, they interrupt, they walk away, they fade out, they do emails, or they just go to a second screen. So how do we solve that problem? The way we solve that problem is by understanding it and understanding what's going on so we can address it. What we're going to do in our time together is I would like to share with you a very powerful tool for organizing your thoughts, because one of the problems that I think that we always have in telling stories, particularly in the not-for-profit universe, is that we get very much down in the weeds and we don't get up to the sky. And sometimes we have to get down in the weeds. Sometimes we have to get down up to the sky. And how do we make the connections between the weeds and the sky? So I'm going to give you a very specific tool that you can use. I'm going to demonstrate it with you. We're going to do a group exercise demonstrating it. And then you're going to work on it yourselves. And we're going to go into a breakout group so you can work on it yourself with probably one partner. And then we'll come back together and share and discuss how we actually turn this into some storytelling. Because the objective that I have today, if this is okay with all of you, is that in 45 or 50 minutes, you leave here with something that is super practical, completely actionable, that will upskill and up-level your storytelling skills. And you're actually able to use that an hour from now, and whatever your next meeting is, okay? Are we game? All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to start by sharing. Okay, I'm doing a screen share. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Somebody thumb up. Okay, great. So now that you can see my screen, I'm going to stop sharing and talk for a moment. We're going to practice a strategy which is called the ladder of abstraction. Abstraction because of what I've just described, that ideas are either highly abstract or very ground level. And ladder because it's visual and it suggests that you're going up or down rungs as you go. The first thing that we do when we build a ladder of abstraction is that we build a library of content, which are just keywords, just big ideas that we can use that we're going to fill into and place on the rungs of the ladder. And before we even begin to build our library of content, we need to know what it is we're asking for, and crucially, who our audience is. Because an audience of board members is different from an audience of funders, is different from an audience of constituents, is different from an audience of community groups, is different from your staff, is different from your vendors. So we really have to find ways to speak with words that our audience can hear, because not all audiences have the same ears. And it's actually our job to speak with the languages that their ears understand. It's not their ears' job to understand the way we talk. So that said, we're going to do a thought experiment together. Let us pretend that all of us, however many of us we have on the screen here, 50 or so, all of us are all working for some fabulous new nonprofit that has just been given a $10 million grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And we need to recruit a new senior staff member. Okay, so so we're all just going to think like that. And here, so let's just play. So we are going to try to get a new senior staff member to say yes. So it's going to be a new staff member. And we are asking this person, what are we asking for? To take the job. Okay, and just again to confirm, you're all seeing my screen as I'm filling this in. I'm going to end up giving you all a fillable chart just like this that you can work with. But right now we're just going to practice it together. Now, let's describe all the things about this fabulous fictitious nonprofit that we currently work for. And people, if you could just unmute and throw out some concepts about what are some of the actual attributes of this nonprofit we work for.
Innovative.
Okay. Keep going. If I can type.
Client-centered.
Client-centered, okay. What else?
New ideas.
New ideas? What else?
Trying to solve a complex community problem.
Solving big, complex problems. Okay, what else? Do we have programs? Can I just throw in that we have some programs that work? Is that okay?
Mhm.
And what else about this place? Is it, are there people who work here?
I see
Fun
in the
place to
chat,
work.
Lisa said diverse.
Okay, great. When I'm doing this, I can't see the chat, so it helps me. Helps if you call them out. I'm going to say there's great people. How do we work together? Are we in silos? Are we collaborative? Are we teams? How do we work?
We're collaborative.
Okay. Remember, this is our perfect ideal nonprofit that we're working for right now, right? What else? What
We're
other
well
attributes?
paid.
Pardon me?
We're well paid.
Well paid, absolutely. You sure are. We just got that money from the Gates Foundation. So we are definitely well paid. What else?
Volunteer opportunities, community engagement.
Okay.
What about that we're supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? I think that can go a long way.
Okay. I'm going to put big foundation support. Why are we here? What is our ultimate purpose at this mythical nonprofit?
We solve big complex problems.
Okay.
Hunger.
And if we solve big complex
Yeah.
problems, what's going to happen?
Self-sufficiency
Okay, that's self-sufficiency for us. What else?
for our clients.
Okay.
We're gonna get ourselves out of our jobs if we're successful.
Okay. And if we're successful, that means that we've solved big complex problems, that we've actually created big systemic change, I would guess. Can I put
Correct.
that? If we actually could work ourselves out of our jobs, there would be big systemic change. Okay.
Angie also says improved quality of life.
Okay, great. What was the first word about quality of life?
Improve.
Okay. Okay, excellent. So just looking at the at these, and I know that if we spend another 5 minutes, we could come up with 10 more, but let's stop here. We have a good beginning for this nonprofit. Now what we're going to do is scale these, and we're going to put these onto a ladder. And if we look at this ladder, imagine up at the top here, we have 30,000 feet, goes down to 20,000 feet, 10,000 feet, and then down here at ground level are stuff in the weeds. So let's just take a look at something here. Pick one of these attributes on the library of content, and let's pick a place. Anybody just call out a place where you think we should put it between 30,000 feet and ground level, and let's try it out. And I can't see the chat, so please unmute and talk with me. This is free. There are no right or wrong answers. We're just playing in
So
the sandbox
solving
here.
big complex problems should be at 30,000 feet. Like
Okay.
we feed
Solve.
every child in
Okay, feed every
something like
child.
this.
Right, solve big complex problems.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Now, how do we walk down the ladder? We walk down the ladder because we're able to ask ourselves a question. And that question is, how does it work? So we solve big complex problems. How does that work? How do we do that? And I bet there's something in here that would help us.
Program.
Again?
We're collaborating.
Program.
Okay, I heard somebody say programs. So let's say we have programs that work. Okay, and in order to have programs that work, well, how do we get programs that work? Let's
We
go
have
down
new
one more.
ideas.
What?
We have new ideas.
Okay, new ideas. And what else?
Collaborative.
Collaborative,
Great people.
teams, great people. Okay, great. So how do you get really great people?
We pay well.
Okay, pay well. All right, we're going to stop there. We could fill in more. We know that we could fill in more, but we're just going to stop here and see how this works, because we also have a way that we can walk our way up the ladder, and we can walk our way up the ladder by asking this question, which is, why is this important? And here's how it works. We pay people really well. Why is it important to pay them well? Well, so we can get great people who work in collaborative teams on new ideas. And what does that give us? Why do we want collaborative teams that work on new ideas? Because that way we can design programs that work. And what happens when we have programs that work? Why is that so important? We can solve big complex problems that lead to systemic change. Okay, fabulous. Now, one of the other beautiful things about this ladder is that you can work from the top down by asking this question, how does it work? You can work from the bottom up by saying, why is this important? Or you can enter anywhere in the middle of the ladder. For example, let's say that the person you're trying to recruit, because remember here, we're trying to get a new staff member to take a job. Let's say the person really, really cares about excellent collaboration. Let's say that's up at the top of their hierarchy. You can say, hey, we have amazing collaborative teams. If you come here, you're going to have the opportunity to collaborate deeply, meaningfully, respectfully with great people. We have a diverse group of people on our staff who are always having great time with new ideas. We're able to attract people like you because we pay well. And when we all work together in our collaborations, we're able to design the programs that have been proven to work. And this has allowed us to have a track record of solving big, complex problems. And we hope that one day we're able to make our organization entirely Zoom out of existence. Does that make sense? So it works
Yes.
up, down, and sideways. It's a very powerful way to organize your thoughts. And I put something else down here at the bottom of this, which is, if we're going to tell this as a story, who's the main character in the story that you're going to tell? In this case, the person that becomes the main character because we're talking to someone to try to recruit them to a job is actually the potential recruit, right? But I could also imagine that there is a model where you're telling a story about one of your clients, one of your staff members, one of your board members, a community organization with which you collaborate. That is the lens through which you can tell the story. And we'll come to that in a minute. But right now, let's just play with organizing the thoughts of your of the nonprofit that you currently work with. Have any of you ever done an exercise like this before? Okay, it's super fun, and it's actually it's actually great, and it's a very powerful tool because when you end up creating this ladder, which we're going to go into breakout groups, and let's figure that we're going to go into breakout groups of only 2 people, which will give everybody enough time to build it out and share a little bit. After you've built your ladder, what you end up with is something just like this with just a few keywords on it. Because when you're talking, nobody wants to hear you read. People just want to hear you talk. And if you just have a few keywords, well, you can write it on the back of your hand and you remember those keywords. And not only that, you can remember the relationship between them. What's up high, what's down low, and how you get together so you don't break the train of thought. A Zoom trick for all of us who now must be on Zoom, and we know that when we're on Zoom, if we're looking at the screen, people think we're not looking at them, and we have to do that trick where we look at the eye of the camera, which means we can't really see our people, but people think we're looking at them. But one of the Zoom tricks is that you can take the keywords and draw that little ladder of abstraction on a sticky note, not a big sticky note, one that big, and you take the sticky note and you stick it right under the camera. So you're looking at the sticky note, but people think you're looking at them in the camera, and that works really well. You could organize all your thoughts. And the reason why you only need a keyword is, and I'm just going to call in somebody, Victoria, what organization do you work with?
I work with the Lighthouse Foundation.
And what does that do?
Oh, great
In a
question.
word.
We provide services
To?
to those in poverty, homeless,
Okay,
housing,
great.
food.
So if I said, what are your programs?
Mhm.
You could probably talk to us for 6 hours about your programs. All you need to do is write the word programs because you remember it. You know it. You are the subject matter expert on your area. You just need to remember programs and where that would go in the tentacle of thought going up or down. That's all you need to do. Okay, here is what's going to happen now. I'm going to make a copy. Okay, let me make sure I have permissions for everybody. Anybody with the link can edit. There we go. And I'm going to put this link is now, all right, so that link of a fillable form I've just put into the chat. First thing you must do, please, is make a copy for yourself. So make a copy, and then that copy is going to be yours forever. You can use it over and over again, and it's just yours. It's going to live inside your drive. And let's take about Let's take about 15 minutes. Go into breakout groups of 2. Spend the first 5 minutes really building out the library of content. Really building out the library of content for your organization. And start by thinking, maybe you need maybe you're going to ask them, you could just do it to build out the library of content to describe your organization. But if you have something where you were going to have to ask somebody or some group to say yes to something, you could fill in those top boxes, which is, what are you asking for and who are you talking to? So you might be asking for $1,000 from a donor. You could be asking the board to approve a new program. You could be asking your staff to accept a new set of protocols. If there's something like that, then you could do that as well, and that can make it even more specific. But if you don't have something where you have a specific ask that you need to tell a story about soon, just fill it out for your organization. It's going to help you find a way to talk about the organization you work with internally and externally. Does this make sense? And are there any questions before we play in the sandbox together and experiment with this? Are you guys game to try? Okay, great. Did everybody grab that fillable form and make a copy for yourselves, please? Wonderful. Well then, could I please ask our colleagues at Slippery Rock to move us into breakout rooms of 2 people each. And you'll magically be transported there. You'll probably have to accept going into the room. And then we'll all come back together in about 15 minutes. Spend some time first building out your library of content. Don't go right into the ladder. Build the library of content first. It makes it much easier. And to organize the ladder, use those questions. How does it work going down, and why is it important going up? And then we'll look at some of them and see how they work. Okay?
Great. Yep, we're ready.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, that worked.
That was done with grace and speed.
I set that up before, as while you were talking, the rooms were set up. It's no problem.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Great.
Do you want to visit the rooms?
I may do that, but I want to give them a moment to get grounded.
Okay. Yep.
And then I may drop in and just see if people have questions as we go.
Can you see the form that says the breakout rooms?
I have it now.
And you can hit the join. Okay.
Yeah, I can join one. Probably when I join one, I'll then be able to move around.
Yep,
and
that's
join
fine.
others.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Have you ever seen that organizational tool before?
I have not seen that tool.
Okay. You should grab the link too. I got to tell you, it's like magic.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It is fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk a lot about the what and the who, but that latter concept really simplifies it so that people can be more clear about what they want.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know what they want sometimes.
Right.
Great. Good.
Okay. So let's figure my time is basically your time
Right.
between now and the end of the student experience, except maybe I go and grab a glass of water between them. Do we want to have a hard stop at the top of the hour? What's your feeling?
When I put things out, I said that the absolute hard stop would be 4:30, so that they would have an opportunity if they had questions after the workshop. There's still a little bit of space for people to ask those questions. And also, I always like an opportunity maybe for them to be able to connect with each other. Not all of these people know each other,
Right.
and the breakout room will give them an opportunity to meet somebody, but it may or may not be anybody that they already knew. So
Okay, great. I'm fine going. I just wanted to see if the group is cool with a 90-minute time span.
yeah, and I'd marked it as that, so
Great.
we're set there.
Okay.
And
Right,
then
well,
in the broadcast to the message at the bottom of the breakout room, whenever you have a 5-minute warning or something like that, I can put that in there if you want me to do that.
Okay.
If you can't, I don't know if you're able to, but
I don't. I don't have broadcast power. I don't think. Maybe after I join the first room, I will. But let's say that we will bring people back at a quarter till
okay.
the hour, so in about 10 minutes, and maybe you could, give them a 2-minute warning before that happens, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yep, I'll do that.
And I'm going to go flow through some breakout rooms.
Okay, great. Enjoy.
Okay.
Hi, Karen. Hi, Christina. Welcome back.
Thanks. I think Christina and we found a common ground and we really kind of connected and it kind of flowed. So it was a nice session.
Awesome. And you know, I talked to Adam when people went away for a minute there and said, we can go, he's with us until 4:30. And one of the things that I like to do even after his presentation is that there are some connections like yours and Christina's that you have an opportunity to maybe share that and connect with each other in a bigger way. So wonderful. Glad that that happened for you.
Yeah, it did. I thought we did really well.
Super. Where are you located? You're at the Zealand. Are you at the Zealand Historical Society, Karen?
Yes, just say Zealy Nopal. Zealy Nopal.
I know I'm in Slippery Rock, so I know what that is. So.
And people tend to get a little, like challenged. It's an interesting word to look at when you first see it. But if you break it into 2 syllables, we're the only nopal in the world. Where the nopal is I think it's German for town. So where Zealy was named after the daughter of the founder, Zealy Nopal.
Oh, that's cool.
Karen, were you in one of these breakout rooms and come back, or did you join us a little bit later?
I know I mentioned that Christina and I found a common thread right away. And she's with the YMCA in Butler and I'm with the Historical Society, and we found our goal to get members and we just kind of flowed. So we're up to, we didn't do the ladder. We just did all of our content and our goals. And
are you, when we get everyone back together, are either of you in a place where you are able to screen share, or is that not technically possible for you right now?
I don't think that's possible right now.
Okay. Well, Alice, if we wanted to ask some of the participants to screen share just so we could see where they are and maybe workshop some together as a group, are we able to give them that power?
Oh yeah, anybody can screen share at this point.
Fabulous. Okay, when people come back, we'll see.
As long as their computer can do it, we can do it. Yep.
Perfect. Okay.
And I've pulled people back then, so they should be on their way.
Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hi, Jennifer, you gave me a big wave.
Well, you welcomed me back.
Thank you. Okay, how was that? How was that little experiment for people? Did anybody have enough time to actually start to put your keywords into the ladder? Okay, how did that go? How did it go for you? Did it feel accomplishable? Did it feel mystifying? Was it hard to figure out how to go from one place to the other?
I think it was, for us anyway, it was a slow start, but then once we got things going and got some ideas going, the momentum kicked in and I think pretty strong.
Great. And one of the tests, one of the reasons that we sort of went into pairs is that it really helps to share your ladder with somebody and talk it up and down to see if the connections work, because you'll feel in your body oh, I can't really go from that rung to the next rung. It doesn't quite feel right. Would any, if somebody filled in their ladder, would anybody be willing to screen share with the group just so we can, you know, workshop a little bit together and practice it together, see where you are? Charlie, would you be willing to?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not sure if I have the capacity to share. Oh, here we are. I do. Okay, can everyone see that?
Perfect. Yep. Okay. So if you, so great. So let's just start with what you're, okay. So what you're talking to a donor who has, who typically considers support at this time. You have a library of content there that you could build out more. And I love that you just have a keyword success stories, because you're the subject matter expert of success stories. If we said, what are your success stories? You could tell us a bunch of them. You just need to remember that there are success stories as you go. So let's just, can we play with this, and can I just feed you with this and ask you some questions?
Sure.
Okay, great. Hey, let's go back to the, let's go to the bottom of the ladder. If you could scroll up a little bit, please. Other way. I'm sorry, scroll down. There we go. Okay. So, all right. So, you know, can you explain what's down at that ground level to us, please?
So because we're introducing ourselves to a new major gift prospect, and typically, you know, we want to build up the relationship, and that could take some time. But because this is the typical time of the year where this donor could consider a major gift, we're a little bit rushed through the process here, and we do want to deliver this solicitation in an appropriate way. But we have that initial introduction. So before we've made this call, there's donor research that has been provided, looking into the historical relationship as well that the donor has with the organization, and being able to draw from your own professional experiences with the donor so that they can get to know you a little bit better as well. So that to us was the ground level, the groundwork there at the beginning.
Okay, and why would it be important to do? Why would it be important to do those things? I'm now trying to take you up one step.
Sure. The importance of doing that is to really open the relationship, develop rapport, and ultimately deliver trust as well. The donor may have trust with the organization, but they may not necessarily have trust with you just yet.
Okay, so you know, just as an example, those items aren't there in your ladder. So there's a little bit of a disjuncture. I feel like what you have here in this ladder is at the bottom is about what you're doing with the donor, but the rest of the ladder is about the attributes of your organization. Am I right?
Yes.
That's sort of what it feels like to me. So as an example, let's just say we were able to replace what's down at the ground level with some of the very specifics of your organization right there, because what we're going to do is we're going to talk to the donor, but we're going to have some specifics, and I don't know what those specifics are, but could you give me one so we can experiment with it?
Well, maybe if it is a detail about the donor, maybe they have a 3-year giving history. Would that help?
How about it's not so much for the, let's go to your organization itself. We're going to talk to the donor about your organization. What does your organization do?
Well, we're a humanitarian organization, and we deal services at the community level, national level, and international level.
Okay, great. So what if we just put field services there? Just put field services there just so we can have that. Okay, great. So as an example, you could talk, let me just do let me model talking up the ladder for a moment with you. That that we do field services, and those are important because they are very successful, and we have certain success stories and success metrics that we can talk about. And why is that important? Because the need is extremely urgent. And why is it important to fulfill an urgent need? Because if we do, there will be massive community impact. I'm changing your words a little bit, but I'm pretty much following the ladder that you have described. And we could also walk down the ladder by saying to the donor, we know that you care a lot about having massive community impact. How does that work? Well, the need is immediate, and we have about a 6-month time horizon to get certain things accomplished. And how does that work? Well, there are successful programs that we've been running, and we can amplify them and do them better. And how do those work? Well, there's field services and other kinds of things that we do to service on a local community and larger level. Now, here's one of the other cool things about this ladder. You might start in this conversation with the donor right there at the 20,000 foot level, which is urgency. The need right now is now. Historically, this donor seems to be making gifts around this time of the year. Right now, your organization has urgent needs right now. And this is a way that your needs and the donor's needs can come together at this exact time. And why are they going to be important? Because that donation is going to have massive community impact, which will benefit the organization and the donor's purpose for doing what they're doing. And how is it going to work? Well, then you would work down about how that donation is going to be deployed. And you go down the ladder to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, just let's unscreen share, if you wouldn't mind. Let's go back to everybody. Was that example helpful to just try to parse it out? And one of the things that I found, Charlie, thank you so much for playing along. And I know this is something that we've all just introduced 25 minutes ago, so we're all just learning it. But one of the reasons it's helpful is that I found is that as we were trying to walk up or down the ladder, specifically, my talking points broke a little bit. I couldn't quite find a fluid way to do it. And that's what I meant. Like, you feel in your body, if you can fluidly go up and down, then you have those tentacles of thought really good. And if you can't, then you want to look at it in a different way and see, how can I make the rungs of the ladder work better? Is there anybody else that would like to and be willing to screen share, and we could just experiment a little bit more together? We're all friends here. Does anybody actually have a completed ladder?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, great. Gemma, would you please? That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Wait, give me a second. Okay, here you go.
Okay.
Let me bring a thing up. I worked it out with Ivy, and she thinks it goes pretty smoothly.
Okay, great. So you're asking for $50,000 from a local foundation. I see that you've built out a good library of content. So let's go down a little bit more. Keep scrolling down. Let's take a look. Keep scrolling, keep scrolling, keep scrolling. Okay, great. Okay, and Ivy, can I just ask you to scroll up a little bit so we can see the whole ladder on the screen? And what would I'm sure that the budget of your organization is more than $50,000. Specifically, what would the $50,000 go towards?
I work at the university, so I'm basically asking for this specific program. So this program will go to supporting, paying for the practitioners for their teaching and coaching, as well as and also the learners doing things like a little budget for their prototype.
Okay, so is the program that you're describing what you have at the 10,000 foot level?
Yes.
Okay, great. Perfect. It's exactly where it wants to be. Could you just, in front of learning spaces, could you just put $50,000 for?
Okay.
Because that's what we need. Okay, great. And then there may be some other things the $50,000 buys, but that's what we need. Okay, great. So I'm going to feed you some questions, and let's just see how it works. I'm going to pretend that I'm the executive director of this foundation that you're asking for $50,000 from. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So Gemma, I understand that you want $50,000 for learning spaces and a place for belonging for diverse students. How is that going to work? How's the money really going to be deployed?
So we will have two parts of the program. One is led by learning, one is led by doing. So the learning part will have experienced practitioners teaching, and the doing part will have the same practitioners coaching.
Okay. Thank you.
And all our teaching and doing are informed by complexity theory, complexity approaches.
I understand. So okay, I understand we want these spaces and spaces for belonging. Why is it important to have those? Now we're going up the ladder.
So you see, our society, we have, even at our local level, we have so many intractable problems, such as the economic transition from more traditional based to a more of a green based economy, and we haven't really been making good progress. And part of the reason is because we don't have that quality of relationship among the change leaders in the region. So I would really like to have that space to develop that relationship and build that capacity for making that change happen.
Okay, fabulous. And so look what you did a great job. And look what you just did. When I asked you why it's important, you went right up to the top of the ladder and talked about this big idea about building capacity to solve intractable problems. And then you went one step down before I even asked and explained how it was going to happen by serving change leaders in a certain way.
Right.
It's a beautiful way to describe what you want to do. How does that feel for you?
It feels great. It's like it started, basically what you did was it started at the middle, kind of tell what it is, and then you went down and then you went up, and it's very helpful in organizing the thoughts. Otherwise, all my thoughts came to me like in a big dump. I don't know where to start and where to go. So very helpful. Right.
And you can see also one of the, let's unscreen share for a moment. That's great. Thank you so much for being willing to share your example. One of the things that happens, I don't know about you, but I know that I never get more than 2 minutes into a presentation before someone interrupts me with a question. Does that ever happen to anybody else? Right? And why do they interrupt us? It's because they're thinking at a different level of abstraction than we're talking at the moment. So for example, if Gemma had just started talking about, we have to solve intractable problems and gone on for a couple of minutes about that, immediately someone was going to interrupt and say, hey, what are you talking about? How's that going to work? And then what we realize is that the person isn't really trying to challenge us. They're just thinking at a different place on the ladder. That's okay. No problem. Well, then Gemma would be able to jump right down a couple rungs to the ladder and say, well, we have to create spaces where diverse people are in a safer space to relate, and we can solve this through complexity modalities. And that's important because if we do this and we do this and we do this, then we're actually going to be able to work towards larger societal issues because we're modeling that here in this program, right? And what that allows you to do is if somebody asks you what I call a disruptive question that tries to throw you off track, you're able to understand, oh, they're not really disrupting. Their brain is just at a different place because that's where their brain works. That's where their ears hear. It's okay. That's why we're all different. But you go to that place on the ladder, and then you go right back into the spine of the ladder to go up or down. It could there are also other examples where you could be talking about something very granular and specific, and somebody says, yeah, but what does that have to do with our organization? So now they're asking a question about how does that relate to 30,000 feet? And you're able to say, well, that relates to our organization because our job is to solve these problems in our community and solve them well. And how do we do that? How do we do that? How do we do that? Well, with this program, which you were just asking me about. Or sometimes you're talking about a big idea, and then the finance person says, okay, yeah, but how much is that going to cost? Well, that's all the way down to the bottom question. And it's the finance person's job to ask those questions. That's why we have a finance person, to keep us from going bankrupt. And they need to know that. Their job depends on that. And they want to know that you've thought that through. But they're not really challenging the idea. They just want to know how it relates to the part of the ladder that they have responsibility for. I'm just curious to know how that feels, how that lands with you. Thoughts, questions, discussion.
I'm curious, Adam, when you're doing this and maybe preparing to work. Sorry, I should tell you it's Sonia. I don't have video on right now.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
When you're preparing to maybe work with a colleague and you're preparing for that meeting, I think I've seen, especially when I've done institutional fundraising for universities, that especially academics get stuck on the rung of the ladder that they associate with more. How do you help them, or even yourself, feel more comfortable in that fluidity?
Well, this is the reason that I suggest that when we practice this, we practice it with a partner. And after you've built out your ladder and then thought about how you want to tell the story, and we can talk about storytelling in a little bit also, you want to practice, and you always want to practice because the first time we make a presentation is generally terrible, and we're very poor judges ourselves of how well it's going.
Mm-hmm.
And you ask your partner to listen with the ears of the audience you'll be presenting to. Generally, people are pretty good at figuring out how to listen to with those ears if you are specific about who the audience is. And then they can give you some feedback and say, well, you know, the community college board isn't really going to care about what you're talking about, but they're going to care about this. Even if you've never met the community college board, you kind of know what a community college board does and cares about. So you could, your pretend audience listening with those ears would be able to really help you shape the level of details. And a lot of storytelling is having the exact right level of details. Sometimes it's a lot of detail in one area and almost no detail in another area, depending on what the audience needs. I also think that more and more we want less presentation and more conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So if the presentation is just to set the table and it lasts 2 or 3 minutes, which is a perfect amount of time to set the table, and then you're able to get into a conversation with your interlocutor, that's where you can really listen yourself to what matters to that person or to that committee and begin to dive deep. And obviously, the bigger your ask, the more practice and expertise you need to have. If you're asking for $25 to bring donuts on Friday, you don't have to do too much research about it. But if you're asking for $250,000 to build out a program, you better have a spreadsheet and a plan and a timeline and a ton of details, because it's a big ask. And obviously you need to scale the level of your own preparation to the scale of your ask.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. What else?
Adam, this is Gemma.
Hi, Gemma.
Hey, my question is which rung on the ladder do you begin? Do you start? Does it depend on the audience? Do you have advice on that kind of groups of audience and where to start?
Okay, I love that question, because the ladder is the way that you organize your thoughts, and you can present from the ladder, but sometimes the ladder is not how you tell the story at all. Sometimes you just tell a story, and the story will lead you into something else. So for example, when Bethany kicked it over to me a little while ago, I told you a couple of stories. I didn't tell you like the organization of how we think about thought. I told you a couple of stories to get you into it. And there were stories that have people that are personified, that are probably relatable circumstances for you. I went back through my former clients and situations that I've personally seen to try to come up with some stories that would make sense in your context. So you had some handle on the potential of what an all hands meeting would be or what a board meeting would be. And sometimes you just want to tell a story. And that's why at the bottom of the form that I shared with you, there's one more question, which is, who's the main character of the story you're going to tell? Because often it's great to begin with a story, and each story has a main character. When you're making a presentation, actually, there's always two main characters, because one main character is always you, because they're going to say yes or no to you. We want them to say yes to you. And that means you're the main character, which means you have to be likable, open, relatable, conversational, expert, relaxed, prepared. The way we show respect for our audience is that we come prepared to every encounter with them. And the reason people ask us questions when we're making presentations, in my observation of it, is that they want to see how well we can work together, particularly if you haven't presented to them before. So the questions aren't really meant to challenge you, throw you off your game, knock you back on your heels, belittle you, deprecate you. Even though often people react defensively, and that's exactly the wrong way to react if we want to have a relationship. Generally, those questions are about, gee, can I work with this person? If I say yes, will this person have my back? Will they do a great job? Will they be transparent? Will they be a great communicator? Will they come and let me know if there are problems so I don't find out from a third party? Will they come every 90 days and tell me how it's going? Because I get 500 emails a day. I got too many things I got to worry about. So can I just trust you that you're going to be a great partner with me? And generally, that's what those so-called disruptive questions are about. It's about establishing, can we have a great relationship? If I or the committee that I represent says yes to whatever your request is. But now, Gemma, let me get back to your question about how you tell the story, about how you make the presentation. And this is very, very context dependent. If you're in a group or a department that is super data centric and just wants to hear about the facts, you probably just want to talk about the facts. And if you start telling a personal story, they're going to fade out and they're not going to listen to you. On the other hand, if you're trying to influence people at a more emotional level, let's be honest, all decisions are really made emotionally first, and then retroactively we figure out why the facts support our decision making. But if you want to influence people at an emotional level, it may be really good to start with a specific story, a very specific story. For example, Charlie, if you were talking to a donor and you know what this donor cares about, you might start with a story of a group that one of your programs helped and made a positive difference, and tell the story about, in 6 months, we had the following outcomes. This program was incredibly successful. This is what it did. Tell that story. And then say, okay, and the reason we're talking today is that with your participation, we could amplify that tenfold. Let me take you into the details. And then you've hooked them with that story. Gemma, you might start with a story of a particular individual who was not able to be working at their full capacity, or felt excluded, or felt invisible, and how that didn't work and that has to change. And then how, by creating the programs and the spaces that you're talking about, that could change. So you might choose to personify it in a very concrete way. And again, like, not made up, like real, concrete. So so if we asked you about that person, you might choose to disguise their identity because you don't want to violate confidences, but there's enough real concrete details that we know that this is real, that we're not just making things up, because our authenticity is crucial when we make a presentation. I think generally we can smell it. Even through Zoom, we can smell it if people are being inauthentic. What else? What else should we talk about? And I also know that not all of you know each other or have known each other before. So this is also an opportunity for you to connect with other people on the Zoom screen, if you would like to do that.
Question, Adam. So if your program, let's say, needs $1 million to make the big impact that you need, but you're talking to a donor that you know the maximum capacity is $25,000 to give, how do you make them feel on the ladder? Where do you put on the ladder that they don't feel just like a drop in the bucket, that they really feel that they're gonna make an impact? Or where do you put this on the ladder? What kind of discussion do you think we should have? So
Right. Well, I would still put them, I would put their 25K right on the 10,000 foot rung. And I would explain to them what that $25,000 will do. And that's how it's going to work. And then why is their $25,000 important? Well, because it's a coalition of the willing and it takes a village. And your $25,000 validates our program, not just because of the $25,000, but because of who you are and the fact that you put your $25,000 there. And it's going to help to trigger more $25,000 and $50,000 and $100,000. And we're going to build this brick by brick until we get $1 million. And that is going to create the full program, which is going to make large societal change. I just walked all the way up to the top.
thank you so much. It's really helpful.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Go get $1 million.
Do you want to be the first one to help me out? Just teasing.
I make documentary movies. They don't pay, but they do have social impact.
I was just teasing, of course.
So one of the things I like about this is that the better informed your ladder is, you don't trip going up or down.
That's right.
So the burden, I mean, communication is whenever the person I'm speaking with understands the message that I'm trying to send, right? And in the way that I meant to send it, and doesn't get lost in all the static. And so if I'm very aware of my ladder, I can sense where is the person on my ladder. And instead of the expectation being for that person to get where I want them to be, I can move them and guide them to where I want them to be. And it becomes a relaxing experience for them, as well as a relaxing experience for me.
Yeah, I love that word, relaxing. So we take the tension out of it for you and for the person or the group you're talking to. So there's no cognitive dissonance. There's no there's no issue in connecting the dots. And it does become our burden as the people making the request or making the presentation to have that flexibility. Like sometimes we wish that the audience had the flexibility to just come to meet us where we are. Alas, it's our job to meet them where they are. It's always our job to meet them where they are. What else should we talk about, team?
We have about 12 minutes left, so what would you like?
Jennifer, what do you think?
I think something that's sticking in my brain that's impactful from what you said was the questions that I can interpret as disruptors and get flustered with, reframing that in my head and looking at the ladder and where the audience is and restructuring what story I'm telling. And I think that's going to be very powerful going forward in my storytelling and conversations with individuals and presentations. So I appreciate you pointing that out to me.
Okay, you're welcome. Sherry, what do you think?
I like the perspective that you gave to us of to remember if the questions aren't on, someone's interrupting the flow of your pitch or your presentation, that it's because of where they like to process, and I know I'm taking that with me because that'll help to reframe. Because of course we always shift gears, okay, and like answer that. But I think it is a more positive way to look at, okay, they're just processing at another level, and it's helpful to see, what can I say that will be more compelling if they really care about that big picture, or they really care about the implementation.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's true in our personal lives and our interpersonal relationships also, right?
Absolutely.
Right. We're in relationship, and one person says this and the other person says, oh, but then we won't have time for dinner. And we're just like thinking of two totally different levels of what's happening today.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I thought about those examples as you were talking too, about when you're talking and then someone asks you something, you're like, that's not, your family, your spouse or whatever, you're like, that's not even where we are right now. But it's, to pause and say, but this is where they're concerned, or this is where they're processing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think somebody was about to speak before Sherry did, but I couldn't tell who.
I think it was Sonia.
It is me. And again, I'm going to apologize for not having video.
No problem.
But
Hi, Sonia.
Hello. I wanted to say that I really like the breakout session. And Chris, I hope you don't mind me sharing this since you were my partner. But I work for a large international organization, and Chris works for a small not-for-profit that he has started and been able to grow over the last 15 years, Chris, more or less. And I think for me, what was really interesting when we were working through the ladder is that even though we had such vastly different experience, coaching each other on the ladder was really helpful. Like Chris asked some really amazing questions. I was trying to figure out how to recruit new volunteers and working my way through what am I asking them for if I want them to be a lead solicitor and help the organization network more and have more donors. And so I think it's really valuable to look outside your organization to colleagues that can help you work through that process that maybe don't have the institutional bias. And Adam, you've been doing that as you've been asking questions, but I was really appreciative to have that one-on-one time as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. We do get inside our own bubble, our own nomenclature, our own acronyms. Chris, I'm curious, what was it? What made you such a good coach for Sonia? What was your process in receiving and interacting with her as you were doing the ladder together?
I was truly just trying to understand what it was that I could grab hold of for my understanding of what she was moving through.
Mm-hmm.
Just asking questions.
Yeah. The process of having somebody else to bounce things off of I think it's actually as much of a skill to coach as it is to present. And I think that you need them both, that good presenters always need good coaches. And I don't mean a professional coach. I just mean someone like Chris or Sonia or anybody else in the room and say, hey, can I practice this with you? Does this track? Does this make sense? Can I run these ideas by you? When I have to pitch a movie, and as I mentioned, in the past decade, mainly I have always made documentaries in the past decade, and almost all of them have been funded by nonprofit organizations, or in large or small part. There's always been a significant nonprofit component to it. And some of them have been pretty large-scale nonprofits who have been able to come in with 6 or 7 figures to support a significant documentary. And by the way, for them, it's been great because it has told their story well. And I think, as Bethany mentioned in introducing me, this film that we made 4 years ago called A Plastic Ocean, which was supported largely by 3 large nonprofits, has changed 100 laws around the world. And from their ROI was to make societal change, the systemic change. They've had huge systemic change off of that. So it was a very good investment and very mission centric for them. But if I go into present something like this, where I'm going to an entity and asking for large amounts of money, I've practiced it 100 times, and I am not kidding. I'm not being hyperbolic. I've practiced it 100 times. I've practiced it. I practice it with strangers. I practice it with friends. I practice it with my wife. I practice it with my kids. I let people poke holes in it, ask me questions. I watch when they lean forward. I watch when they lean back and start to check their email. So I feel really attuned to what's going to work, what words land, what confuses people, what details feel concrete, what details are too much. So I walk in and I feel really prepared. And then I have this whole hard drive of information lodged in my brain of a lot of details. So if somebody says, well, why are you spending $50,000 on publicity? I can say, well, let me break it down for you. Here's how it goes. And if I'm asking for big money, it is my job to be the master of those facts. And that way, the entity that I'm working with knows that they can trust me, that I'm going to take excellent care of their money as if it were my own. It'll be well spent. We can have transparent conversations. They'll always know what's going on, because I'm showing up at the very instance, at the beginning, as a clear, transparent collaborator with them, which is kind of what we all want, right? We want to work with good people. I want to work with good people. And anything else that we should talk about, or anything else? Yes, go ahead, Jennifer.
You'd mentioned before, and I know we only have 3 minutes left, but you'd mentioned something about lens from which to tell the story. How do you choose what lens?
I think about who the audience is and what they are most going to relate to. And to give you an analogy for that, because to give you an analogy for that, as you know, I'm in I spend a lot of time in the entertainment space. If we make a movie, we might cut 40 different trailers or commercials for it, and you'll see you'll see a different commercial for it that might play at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a daytime TV talk show, and a very different commercial that plays at 9 p.m. at night on some kind of crime drama. Same movie, story told differently. Or you could play this game with if you guys have Netflix. Netflix is, they're very data centric. They know exactly who you are. When I sign on to Netflix, but they show you these previews, and then there's like this single image of the show and the title of the show. So when I sign on for certain shows, the single image is the actors, and it's the white actors in that movie. My wife is black. When she signs on, it shows her the black actors. And that's because they're completely data driven, and they're so specifically attuned to who the audience is. And so by analogy, that's my answer for you. It's like, think about who your audience is, what's going to resonate with them. I find the Netflix thing kind of creepy, but it's a daily household experience that we have.
Thank you.
So Bethany, would you like to close us out here?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Adam, for coming today and doing this wonderful presentation. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And thank you to all of our guests that came today as well.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. It was great to meet everybody and to have some conversation today.
And for any kind of follow-up, if folks are interested, we have recorded this. And the possibility, once we get it ready for distribution, we'll put it up on the Institute's website, and you're welcome to take a look at it then. And certainly, Adam, if people are interested in getting in touch with you, is that a possibility?
Yeah, it is. You're welcome to. In fact, my email is on the bottom of that Google Doc that I shared with you.
Great.
And so thank you all, and thanks to Slippery Rock, and I'll see you all shortly again.
Yeah, great.
So I'm gonna sign off for a bit.
Okay, perfect.
Or is it the same Zoom link for?
Same Zoom link.
Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna turn off my camera and then I'll come back in a little bit. So I'm just gonna keep it open.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Well,
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So we're just, we're gonna hang on for the next little bit of time, so.
When do you want me to come back for tech check? In about 20 minutes?
Yeah, as long as it's 10 to, we're in good shape, so as long as maybe 10 till 5 would be perfect.
That's gonna happen. Great,
Yes.
okay.
Take care, bye-bye, it was great. Adriana, can I help you? Okay.
I'm going to log off and log back on in a little bit.
Okay, and I saw that we had another torrential rainstorm there for a little bit, so are we gonna just leave? Do you want to just leave the stuff up there, or what would you like to do?
I'm planning on just staying here until the end. And so I can go up there, and I already told her that I'll help her pack up everything. And if it's okay, I can just like leave the door propped open, bring everything back in, and then close the door, or I can just leave it in my car overnight.
It's whatever's better for you.
Okay.
If you've got somebody to help you bring it and you want it out of your car, that's fine. You'll have to leave.
I was already here.
Say it again.
I was just thinking because I was already here.
If you'll have to leave the building door open also, and not just the office door. So prop something in that side door, you know, kind of that faces the field house.
Okay.
So, and she ought to be able to help you carry things up, right?
Yes.
Did you guys just take like one box or a few cups?
Yeah, there's one box up there right now.
That's good. Okay, good.
By like 3:30, there was already about 7 people. So along the way, Adam has made 35 films that have disrupted expectations, including March of the Penguins, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Dead Poets Society, and Titus, A Plastic Ocean. One of his most recent documentaries has inspired more than 100 new laws around the world and was invited to the United Nations. We reached out to Adam, and even though we never met him before, he had instantly said he'd love to join us today. Thank you so much for being here, Adam. And we have an amazing group of students gathered here today. Some of us are about to leave Slippery Rock and some are early in our journey. But how can people discover what their purpose is and if they're on the right path?
It's so great to be here. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you, Alice. Thank you so much for asking me here. And thanks for everybody for being here. It's great to see everybody's faces. And in the last spring break, before we graduated from college, 4 friends and I decided that we were going to hike the Appalachian Trail. We drove in an old Volvo to Asheville, North Carolina, found a convenience store, and paid Floyd, who ran the convenience store, $10 if we could park our car in the parking lot for a week. He said he would watch it for us. And then he put us in the back of his pickup truck and drove us to the trailhead, where we were going to enter and go from the Blue Ridge Mountains to the Great Smoky Mountains across the Appalachian Trail. We had backpacks that were 30 pounds each because we were planning to hike out there for a week. We got in for the first day. We were totally unprepared backpackers. To explain how unprepared we were as backpackers, you know the way you hang your food from a tree so bears can't get it? I'm not even sure if there are bears in the Appalachian Trail, but we thought there were bears. And we tied our food up with a piece of nylon cord, nylon stretches. So we spent half an hour throwing it over the branch of a tree, pulling it up, and then watched as the nylon cord stretched and the food came right down to bare eye level. That's exactly how prepared we were as backpackers. We got 3 days in, the weather was getting cloudy, even though it was March. The forecast, I'm not even sure we had looked at the forecast, but we didn't think the forecast was going to be bad. And on the fourth day, around 4 o'clock in the morning, we all felt the inside surface of our tent pressing against our cheeks because a heavy blanket of snow had fallen overnight. Our tents had become convex or concave, anyway, they were pressing down on our faces on the inside. And when we managed to get out of our tents, all we could see was a field of white. We were in a blizzard. It was obvious that we could not keep going on, but we were already 3 days in. And should we try to turn back and go back 3 days out? Should we go forward 4 days forward? We couldn't really do any of those things. And in fact, we couldn't even see the trail because the trail was completely snowed over. We realized that the only thing that we could do is go down. So we started to go downhill. We were carrying at that point probably 25 pounds on our backs. So as soon as we started to go downhill, we slipped and fell back on our backs. And we ended up sliding down the mountain for 12 hours until we found a highway and hitchhiked back to the convenience store. And Floyd said, I was wondering when you guys were going to come back here. And there we were. And I start with that because we thought we knew what we were going to do. We had a plan. We were as prepared as we knew how to be. And then the plan changed, but we managed to get out because the only direction was the direction that gravity would take us. Sometimes gravity is the place that takes you where you want to go. I'm very flattered that some of you have seen the TEDx talk that I gave. Alice, I'm very flattered that you included it as a part of your coursework. And I'd love to just have a discussion with everybody here, because sometimes I get emails from people who have seen that TED Talk where they say, I'm trying to find my life purpose. Can you help me? The answer is no, actually, I can't help you because I don't know you, and that's your work for you to do. But sometimes gravity will just take you where you need to go, to the highway where you can hitchhike and find your transportation and get to where you need to be. I have found that the path of finding one's purpose in life is sometimes very difficult, and it's always very fulfilling. And in my own journey, it is the divining rod that I use for deciding if I want to get involved in anything that I do, any relationship, any project, any employment, whether it feels consistent with who I am and what I want to be doing. I've also found that it's really good to give yourself permission to change what you think your purpose is, and that it changes over time. The purpose that I had a decade ago is not exactly the same as the purpose that I have today. And the purpose that I have a decade from now will probably be different from the purpose that I have today, because we have life experience and things change. I would like to have more of a discussion, and I have various things that I can spice into our discussion as we go. But I would love to just start by asking any of you, particularly some of those who may be about to leave Slippery Rock because you're in your final year, how you've been approaching your sense of purpose and what purpose means to you, and what questions you have about that. Is that okay if I just start there and see if anybody would like to help to guide the discussion as we go? I can't, if somebody was unmuted, I can't really hear you.
I don't know if someone was going to talk or not, but if not, I will.
Go for it.
Okay. My name's Michaela. I am a senior getting ready to graduate here at Slippery Rock. I am a dual major in special education and in nonprofit management. And I actually took Empowered to Serve with Alice last spring, the first time that she taught it. I haven't seen your TED Talk, though. I would like to. So in her class last semester was really the first time, like, I kind of knew what I was interested in and what I might like to do, or the population I might want to work with. But taking that time last semester and really thinking about, what do I want to do with my life? What is my goal? And I found through that class that I believe my purpose as of right now is to change the lives for the better of individuals with intellectual and physical disabilities.
Beautiful. How does having come to that understanding about yourself shape how you're approaching what you're going to do after Slippery Rock?
So before, it was already my major here, and that was something I was already interested in. But I think that it just, like, identifying that as a passion and as a purpose gives you so much more of a drive, and it gives you something when you set, like you say, this is my purpose and this is definitely what I want to do. It gives you motivation to work harder at it and learn more and be more passionate about it.
I see there's, I see, Kim, you have a question that you put into the chat. Kim, would you like to unmute and say it for the group? Are you in a place where you can do that?
Sure. I just asked, do you have any suggestions for narrowing focus when you have varied or diverse interests?
I do. And first, I think it's fabulous to have varied and diverse interests, because probably each one of us has about 8 different careers in our work life. So we'll probably have a chance to explore many of our diverse interests, and our interests will change over time. I think maybe to be, your question is really about how you narrow your focus. And generally speaking, if you want to narrow your focus, it's because you don't yet have as much information as you could have about the many interests. And there are 16 different things that you could do, 16 different places where you could work, or different communities that you could serve. Which one do you really want to go serve now and first? And so 2 comments on that. The first is, it's really good to go investigate and explore, and to discover early on if a community or a passion or a work area that you thought was great isn't great. That's a win. Let's be really clear. Knowing that there's something you don't want to do, Xing it off of that list so you only have 15 instead of 16 is a win, because you don't have to spend your time going down that road. There was and also the idea of regrets, that you might get to be 40 or 50 years old and say, oh, I wish I would have done this, and you didn't do it. Well, let's find out now if you really want to do that. couple of years ago, somebody came into my office who, and he was about 50 years old. He said, I always wanted to be a talent agent. I always wanted to work with one of the big talent agencies like William Morris or CAA, but my parents wanted me to go to law school, and I did that, and then I went to business school, and then I became a stockbroker, and I've worked on Wall Street for 20 years. I've made a lot of money. I'm really hate it. I'm really unhappy. I wish I'd been a talent agent. I said, okay, do you really care about that? He said, yes, I really care about that. I said, okay, well, here's a process. And if you really still want to be a talent agent, let's see if we can get you your foot in the door. So I talked to him about how you could do that. He spent some time. He got an offer. 3 months later, he was back in my office. He said, they hired me. I hate it. All I have to do is I'm on the phone and I yell at people all day. I said, okay, well, good to know. Now what are you going to do next? But he'd spent 25 years wishing he would have done something else without figuring out 25 years ago, maybe going into one of those places of work, discovering that all they do is yell at people all day, and you don't want to be in that toxic environment. So he didn't have to live with all that regret. So perhaps let's talk for a moment about the actual process that you follow. Because one of the things that I would love to be able to do with this group is give you some real practical, actionable takeaways that you can use. Because Kim, I'll bet you're not the only person who has this question or will face this question of how do you figure out where you want to go? And even if you know where you want to go, how do you actually get in there? And if you would like, with the assent of the group, I could take about 10 minutes and talk about a process. Would that be okay? Okay, so this process works. I do not do this for a living. I do this because it's my passion. I love to talk with people about career and career path. This process has put about 250 people into jobs that they love in the past decade. But you have to do the process. And the process is a process of very specific information interview. Is the concept of an information interview one that you have been introduced to before? Yes? Yeah, maybe? Okay. It looks like maybe for some people. The idea of an information interview is that there is no job on the table. You are just going for information. And it's really good that there's no job on the table, because if you approach people and say, I'm looking for a job, they won't meet with you because there are no jobs. And they don't want to say no. They don't want to disappoint you. So they're just going to say, sorry, there are no jobs. But instead, if you approach people and say, just graduated from Slippery Rock, I'm at a transitional point in my career right now. There was a point where you also were in a position like mine. I'd really love to find out about how you handled your first approach and your career transitions. People are very likely to say yes. In fact, you'll get about a 20% yes rate for that kind of a request, because most people, particularly in the nonprofit arena, also actually in my industry, the entertainment industry, we're give back people. We were not born into these jobs. We wanted to be there. We come because we're purpose driven, because there's something that really excites us. So you'll get about a 20% yes rate for something like that. And then in the non-pandemic times, or when we're able to go out and physically see people, we can physically go see people, or we go see people on Zoom right now. And we just pose that question directly to them. We say, Kim, there was a point where you were in a career transition. How did you approach that? And then the most important thing, next thing that you do, is that you stop talking and let them talk. Because there's this weird psychological thing that happens when somebody is talking to you and they see you listening, they think you're really smart. That's because people have egos. They think if you're listening, you must be really smart. And you let them talk and you listen to what it is. And then you ask them about what they're doing and what a typical day is in their life right now, and you find out. And if you cast your net wide initially because there are 16 different things you want to do, and you reach out to people in all 16 areas, probably you're going to find out that only 3 of them right now would be a good fit for you. You find out that the actual day-to-day isn't what you thought it was going to be. Like this guy who came into my office and thought he wanted to be an agent and didn't realize that agents yell at people all day. So you have to find out. So you'll find out these things about what feels good. But along the way, here's what also is happening. After you talk to each person, you ask if there's someone else that you could talk to, get a referral. And then when you do that and you reach out to the next person, you say, hey, Michaela, Barbara suggested that I reach out to you. You're going to get about a 30% yes rate because Barbara referred me to Michaela. Okay, because now we have a little bit of credibility. We've got a referral. And then you go and have that conversation with Michaela. And then Michaela, who else could I talk to? And Michaela says, well, maybe you could talk to Madison. And now Madison's going to say yes because Michaela suggested that we talk to you. So you build. So what you're doing now is you are building out your contact database. And in a few months, you're going to have 100 new people in your contact database. It's essential to build your contact database larger as you enter into your career and career path, because by definition, the people in your network, in your contact database are not going to hire you unless they have already. Because if they're already in your contact database and they haven't offered you a job, they're not going to, because they already know you. Therefore, you need to make it bigger. You need a bigger universe to go after. So now we're 3 or 4 months in, you've got 100 more people in your contact database. And now people are going to start, you will also have developed a greater knowledge of the 1 or 2 areas that are now really fascinating to you. Maybe there are even positions that you didn't even know existed before. They're jobs that, because until you're actually inside some organizations, you don't even know that certain kinds of jobs and positions exist, and you start to gravitate to it. And now you begin to get more focused, and you discover that what you really want to do is become a community manager. And you find out that Claire is a community manager. So you say, Claire, can I talk to you about how you became a community manager? There's no job on the table. You're not asking for a job. You say, Claire, tell me about being a community manager. And then you say, gee, Claire, are there any other community managers I can talk to? And Claire says, yeah, Kirsten's a community manager. I know Kirsten. And now you reach out to Kirsten. So now you're beginning to build out your network of community managers. Not only that, you're developing, now you're starting to understand the geography of community management. You understand the vocabulary, the things that are important, the acronyms, the styles, these things that are all inside that you haven't had a chance to be exposed to yet. So you're now amassing this whole database. Oh, by the way, now there's 50 community managers who know who you are. And now when there's a position, they say, whoa, interesting. Kim was in my office a couple of weeks ago. Wonder if Kim could do that. And now you're in a position of being more fluent in this area. And this is the thing about getting jobs, because as you know, there are no jobs, right? We know there are no jobs. And we also know that the unspoken truth of many organizations is that when they post a job, they know who they want to hire. And sorry if I'm like pulling back the curtain here, but they know who they want to hire. They post the job for legal and HR reasons, so they can say we looked at everybody, but they know that they wanted to hire somebody. So they go through the exercise, which may just be theater, of interviewing people, but they knew that they wanted to hire somebody already. They had pre-picked that person and they give the job to that person. Well, you kind of want, and the point is that often jobs are created because we know somebody. That there's or a person comes with talent, and then an organization realizes they have that need, and this person could fill that need. So therefore, you have to be in the right place at the right time. And this entire process that I've just suggested of information interviews works because statistically it puts you at more places at more times. So you just end up in the right place at the right time because you're out there more. Now, this is the place where people sometimes stop It takes 100. You've got to have 100 information interviews. And I set that number high. For me, when I first got into, my first career was in theater. When I moved from theater to movies, it took me 87. 88 was the company that hired me. It was Disney, and they hired me. I've known some people where they got a job offer on the third one. But I say 100 because if you email me 3 months after you graduate and say, Adam, this is awful. I've done 60 information interviews. I'm getting no traction. I don't know what to do. I'm still living at home. My parents are about to kick me out and they're saying, why don't you just go get a job? I'm going to say, great, you only have 40 more. Keep going. And you've got to stick with it. The 250 people that I mentioned that have gotten jobs through this process in the past decade are the ones who didn't stop. You've got to go through the 100. And there are so many benefits to going through the 100. In addition to just having 100 people now in your contact database, because then when you get hired, which you will, you're going to know a bunch of other people who are going to become resources to you. And when suddenly you're in your new job and somebody says, hey, can you figure out how to do this? You say, gee, I don't know. But I remember talking to Madison. Madison did that. And you call Madison and say, Madison, who was your contact who were able to get you this? And now you're of greater value because you have all these people. And then in a couple of months, Madison might call you and say, hey, Kim, how did you do that? And now you've built out your network in a bigger way. This process truly, truly works if you go to 100. And if you set yourself for 100, especially coming out of the education that you've had and the program that you've had, which is so excellent and so highly regarded, you're going to find it. But this will also begin to address the question you started with, Kim, which is, how do you narrow your focus? By definition, you will at a point wake up in the morning, it'll be snowing, you can't go forward or backwards, you have to slide downhill, and gravity is going to take you to where you need to be. What else should we talk about? Who else has questions or comments or disagreements? Or has anybody tried that and had experiences? And you can put it in chat or raise your hand or just unmute.
I was thinking that LinkedIn is a great way to do that. We actually went to a nonprofit and leadership conference, and one of the presenters talked about during COVID and during the quarantine, she was reaching out to like one person in her contact list and just saying, hey, can we meet for a virtual Zoom meeting? And that she was able to really grow her contact list that way. So that seems to be an easier way to do it.
It is really easy. And, pretty much everybody I know gets a bunch of, I would say, spam messages and spam invites on LinkedIn, particularly when they're at certain points in their career. But we can tell the ones that are real. And the ones that are real, where they mention something specific about, like, I read your book, I saw this work, I was very impressed at this company where you work, and you're very specific. Those have a pretty high response rate. So if you're authentic and you're well motivated and real, you're going to get a pretty high response rate from that. I'm scanning faces. What else would be helpful? What else would you like to talk about? Has anyone had an experience where there was something you thought you wanted to do and then you got into it and discovered, oh no, I didn't. I thought it was X, but it's really Y? Barbara, I see you're nodding your head.
I had that experience before I chose Slippery Rock as my college. I was actually going to go to a trade school for music production, media production. And about 2 months before my graduation, I was like, I don't want to go to a trade school. So I scrambled, found Slippery Rock, but knew it was a perfect fit based on class sizes and the fact that both my parents graduated from here. And then that even happened again whenever I went to orientation. I was still a media production major, and I went and sat in like the communication department orientation. And I hear somebody mention public relations. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. I graduated with 60 kids. You could be a teacher, you could go into the military, you could be a doctor. Like it was pretty cookie cutter career options that they taught us about. And I kind of just, like you mentioned, followed the gravity. And I transferred on my way home, and I'm very, very happy. So yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. But I definitely understand what you're saying with having to change my mind and realizing that that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, Michaela just put in chat that, Michaela, you started in nursing school for a while and then discovered that wasn't the right thing for you, right?
Yep.
Anybody else have stories about that you came here after thinking you wanted to be somewhere else and discovering it wasn't for you at this moment in your life?
Whenever I came to Slippery Rock, I was the first gen student interested in science and biology all of my life. And I was like, I want to be a bio teacher because I want to help like other people learn. And within the first 6 weeks, I realized that's not where I wanted to be, nor where I needed to be. Luckily, I stumbled upon like nonprofit management, and I love it. But at first, I was just like, oh, this isn't what I wanted, nor was this what I expected.
Yeah, Kirsten, it looked like you were nodding your head also. What was your experience?
I started off applying to vet tech school and I got in. And then I decided I didn't want to go there and I wanted to be a full-on vet. So I came to Slippery Rock Bio pre-vet. And after the first semester, I realized I was not going to be able to do that. And so I switched to communication PR. And then after doing that, I realized I wanted to do more nonprofit stuff. So I added nonprofit management.
Fabulous. Yeah. And has anybody also had experiences like Emma was just talking about, where you entered some world and then you realize there's this whole kind of job category I never knew about? Like Emma just said, PR. I didn't even know that was a thing that you could make a career out of. Anyone else had those experiences? And I'm curious what those job categories or those pathways were that you hadn't known about before.
So I talked about this a lot with Allison, Empowered to Serve. In high school, I used to sit on my computer and I would Google like careers that help people or jobs that change the world, and nothing points to like get a career in the nonprofit
Right.
world. So that was something that I didn't realize really existed. I knew that nonprofit organizations were a thing, but I don't think that in high school unless you have experience with one, I at least didn't really know what that meant. And I didn't know that there was a possibility of taking that as a career path. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog.
That's okay. We like to have friends here. I think you're right. I think most people in the world don't know that there's a whole set of multiple career tracks in the 501c3, 501c4 universe. And as Bethany mentioned, I've spent half my life in nonprofits, but big ones and small ones. My first career was in theater, which is truly about as nonprofit as you can get. I mean, like seriously, there were 6 months where we couldn't pay the rent, and the only reason that we weren't closed is because we were physically squatting in the building. So that's about as nonprofit as you can get. And then National Geographic, which feels like a government agency, is a gigantic nonprofit with with very large budgets for various kinds of things. So there's quite the range. How important is it to love what you do? How do you explain that to people in your lives who don't understand that? That's a great. Alice? Is that your question? I think
my students talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
can you really do for a living what you love? And how do you justify that to people that have never really done anything that they love?
Heck yeah. I mean, I haven't worked since I left college. It is my, like that's my lived experience is, have I spent 28-hour days and 8-day weeks and ground things out? Yeah, but has it been like studying for archaeology finals? No. The one class I failed in college, but it's like, no, it's different. And I think that there are times in our lives where we have to be expedient, where we have certain responsibilities to ourselves and others. Sometimes we do things just because, we drive Uber because we have to pay the rent. I put myself through college being a garbage collector. And it's not because I woke up and said I love being a garbage collector, although I found things to love about it. I found it interesting from a sociological point of view. I learned a lot about sociology by being a garbage collector, but sometimes we just do things that are expedient. And I think the question you asked, which is how do you explain to people who don't do that? Because I think most people hate their jobs. Most people can't wait to get out of their jobs, can't wait to retire, just fantasize something else. And this happens a lot in the arts, where a lot of people have to try to explain to their parents why they want to be a writer, a singer, a composer, an actor, an artist, a designer. And the parent says, please just go to law school or just get a CPA. And they say, no, I don't want to get a CPA. I hate that. I want to be a designer. I don't know how you explain that. But the explanation will test it will test how much you really believe it. And I think, my lived experience is that people who moved to the place of their passion, of their love, long-term are much happier. They are not like that stockbroker who came into my office and said, my mom and dad wanted to be a lawyer and I went onto Wall Street and I made a lot of money. I have found that people who are motivated only by making a lot of money, well, first, they don't always make a lot of money, or they end up making it and losing it, but they're also not happier. They're really not happier. And we don't take it with us. The only thing we ever take with us when we leave this planet are our relationships. And I think it's more important to love who you're working with and who you're working for than, in some ways, that's as much important as to love what you're doing. If it's a really good idea to work with good people. If there's any, in my own experience, I don't think I am better, smarter, more talented than anybody else. And I think that the good experiences I've had, the successes I've had, are because I've chosen to work with good people, and I've chosen not to work on things that seemed promising or profitable if the people were not good, if the people were not well motivated. So Alice, for me, a lot of doing what you love is also about working with people whom you at least like, and at least you have some commonalities of values and interest. I think otherwise it's very difficult. And if you're in a position where, look, as you all know, some nonprofit managers get paid very well and some get paid very poorly. And if you're in that position of being less well paid because you are working with an organization that serves a massive need but does not have a massive budget, you may have to answer to somebody who says, well, why are you doing that? You could go get a real job. And you may just have to say, this is my real job. This is what I care about. And I don't really, I don't think that your happiness, once you have your basic needs met, I don't really believe that your happiness is based on your paycheck at all. because we know really unhappy people who have very big paychecks. And we know really happy people who don't. I think money is not the litmus of anything. Once, of course, if you have basic needs, you got to meet them. If you have family to support, you've got to do that. That is your responsibility. But beyond that, it's not. I think that is not the key. And also, I think that I think many people who have less annual income are better savers than people who have higher annual income and blow their money on expensive cars, expensive meals out, expensive vacations, expensive things, expensive alimony, expensive all kinds of stuff. And I've actually been stunned in my universe because look, I'm comfortable. I'm not, but I'm certainly not super rich, and I'm not super rich because I've chosen to make social impact documentaries instead of other certain things that I don't care about as much. But I certainly, travel in a universe where there are people who are super rich. But it's really interesting, and I've discovered that many of the people who appear super rich have less savings than I do in my 401k because they blew their money. So I don't know. It's a long way around the block to respond to the prompt you gave me, Alice.
I'll just, if I could, I'm quite a bit older than most of the faces that I'm seeing, and I sort of lived this in that I was at university and wanted to be a theater major, and my parents said, "What are you going to do with that? And you've got to do something more practical. You're capable of more," these types of things that they tell you. So I went to law school and I graduated from law school, and I hated most of it. And then I worked in the legal field and again, hated it.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up staying home for a while to raise my kids. Where do you think I went when I needed to go back to work?
You went back to theater.
I did.
Of course you did.
and I just don't think, if it is a true passion, I just don't think it leaves you. And on the upside, if you're in the wrong place, you can always return. And I was lucky in that I was able to manage a theater company using my law background. So I was able to use some of that. So, I don't believe anything you learn is a waste. But I definitely have taken a different approach with my boys. One of the things we say is, look at what you would do for free. I would, spend 24 hours in a theater if I could. That helps you to identify your passion. What am I doing for free? I mean, we're not talking just like playing video games and stuff, but
although I do know somebody who played video games a lot and now plays video games as a tester for a video game company, and he makes $200,000 a year.
Oh my God. Yeah. So
talk about following your passion and just having a good time.
Yes. Yes. So I tell my boys, follow your passion.
Going along with just doing what you would do for free, another way to think, a variation on that theme is do what's just so easy for you. Every one of us, there's something we do that's just so easy for us. We think nothing of it. We think it's just the easiest thing in the world. We do it in 10 seconds. It takes other people 10 hours. We do it in 10 seconds because it's just the way we operate. You will always be paid to do that. Whatever that is, you can always get. Now, it may not be the thing you love to do the most, but if the thing that you do easiest, you can always get paid for, because that's hard for everybody else. And you may go through some process of discernment of figuring out what that is. But everyone has those, those skills. Have any of you self-identified what that happens to be for you? See, like me, my special gift is I'm a pre-planner, which is why I could become a producer. That if you say, there need to be 5 elephants on the hill for Oliver Stone to shoot them tomorrow morning, I immediately can think of 5 people to call, 5 people to call after that, who to call if the 3rd elephant doesn't show up, what to shoot if the elephants can't come until Saturday morning. And I'll do that in about 5 minutes. It's just like the way my brain works. But that's my superpower. Is I'm a pre-planner, and I have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C immediately, because I know something's going to go wrong. But does anybody else have interesting, weird superpowers like that? Not mine, but your own. Emma, go ahead. What's yours? But you have to unmute. Can't hear you.
Test. It takes me a minute.
Okay, got it.
I've got a weird one, and I'm not really sure how I'll apply it in the professional world, but we're big movie people at my house, which actually my first movie was March of the Penguins. The killer whale scene freaked me out, so I'm gonna blame that on you.
Sorry about that.
No, I can memorize movie lines and pretty much like anything, movie lines, random bits of trivia, songs, song tunes, pretty much after like hearing something or seeing something once. So I believe when we took a quiz earlier in the semester, I believe that trait was called, can you remind me, Dr. Del Vecchio, what it was something about absorbing information, but that's one that I'm pretty proud of.
It's fantastic. Is there anyone else? I'm curious.
So I've been dyeing and working with hair since I've been 8 years old. So now I'm able to like kind of look at someone's hair, determine their hair history. So like all the dyes that they might have used before, and figure out the chemicals that they would need to fix their hair, quote unquote, like to the different colors that they want to go to, and be able to plan that out within like 10 minutes.
That's amazing. I've never heard of anybody who had that superpower.
It's terrifying because if you mess up, you mess up.
It's fabulous. Anyone else? I love that. Well, you all have one. Everyone absolutely has one, at least. What else?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious to know, what do you think of today's hustle culture? You know, that like it's Monday morning, get up and get it, that sort of thing. That's, you know, work hard all the time. Have you heard of that? I mean, I feel like it's on like Pinterest, and it's like this motivational stuff that's constantly in our headspace. So I'm wondering what you think of hustle culture.
Well, you're talking to someone who wakes up at 5 o'clock every morning, and but so that's what I do, and I do work long, but I don't really, I don't know. It feels a little bit artificial to me, doesn't it? It feels a little bit forced. I don't wake up at 5 in the morning because I'm forcing myself. It's because I have all these things. I have a lot of plates spinning at any one given time. And I get up and say, okay, well, what plate am I going to spin first this morning? And what's the critical path? And what do I have to get done by the end of the day? And I go do that. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of forcing things. And I think that so much of what we see on social is designed for people to try to get their own follower base, and is not really authentic. And I think a lot of it is fake. All of these little vignettes that we're seeing now on Instagram and Facebook, where people are holding up a series of signs and doing a reveal, and like with somebody's blindfolded and then they take off the blindfold and they embarrass them. I think they're all auditioning for reality TV shows. I don't really believe most of them. So I was like, So I don't spend too much of my time there. I was just looking over here at, I was just looking over here at my notes of some of the things that I thought it would be fun to talk about. And we talked about a lot of it. We talked about an early fit. If you find an early fit, that's great. But if you find out that something early is a bad fit, that's an absolute win, because you can now tick that off your list. You don't have to waste your time, and you don't have regrets 24 years later. We talked about information interviews. We talked about, I mentioned early on that you can change your purpose. It's so good to have a purpose, and it's just, even if you write it down, it's just electrons that you can change. So you have absolute privilege to change your purpose whenever you want to, because it's yours. The other thing about purpose that I kind of love is to have something at the end of that sentence, which is about the ultimate effect. Like that phrase, in order to, and then how you complete that. So there is some larger rationale for why you do what you do. So if you, if your purpose is to create environments where special needs children can have the best learning outcomes. Now let's finish that sentence, in order that, or in order to, and now somehow you would finish that. And that then takes you up to a larger or grander sense of things that is always a North Star that you can move towards, and you can calibrate your actions and your activities too. Something that I do. I want, Michaela, can you talk more about what Alice's husband quoted?
Alice might be able to talk about it better than me. Alice, it was whenever we were doing the, whenever he was talking at the alumni house. And I don't know what he was quoting, but it was whenever he said, I must help these people. I have seriously had that stuck with me for the last few weeks. I don't know if you know what he was quoting or not.
I think he was talking about when you see people that have a need, instead of walking over them or around them, if that need draws you in, then you must do something about it. That it's not, he talked about, it's more than just a paycheck, and you have to be who you are. And if you can't get it out of your head, then you're going to have to do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, we can think about ourselves as a puzzle or jigsaw puzzle pieces, and sometimes we experience something, we get in situations, and all those puzzle pieces fall on the floor, and at that moment, you know that you have to do something to put the puzzle back together. And when you feel that, and it's very physical, you feel it in your body. Feel in your body, and you have to trust your body. We live in a society that's very unembodied. Zoom, of course, has been the past year a super unembodied experience, because we're now little squares on the screen. Although there's something cool about that, which is that the playing field is now entirely level, that we're all squares on the screen, and we're all exactly the same size. We're all exactly the same height. And nobody can wear expensive shoes and impress people, because most of us aren't probably wearing shoes. So there's level of level playing fieldness in in Zoom, but it's a completely unembodied experience, which means that we have to really work to get connected to people in the Zoomiverse. And when we're able to go back and be in person, making that connection is significant. But being in our bodies and being open to understanding the emotions that we have. I think in our society, we're pretty closed off from emotions a lot, or our emotions are overdetermined, by which I mean we express the emotions that we know that social pressure says we're supposed to feel or that we're supposed to demonstrate. I think there's a lot of performative emotion without the introspection of seeing, is this emotion really authentic to me, or is it just what I am supposed to be expressing right now? And if you've developed the sensitivity of that gut feeling, and to really know to trust your gut, I think, Grace, this is also part of the answer to the question you just put in chat, which is how do you know when it's time to change your purpose? If your gut doesn't feel it, it's time to change it or modify it or add a word or change something about it. The from a purely scientific basis, we make decisions emotionally, but we choose socially not to accept that. But we all, including, and I, as it happens, I'm privileged to consult to some very big tech companies, which are very data driven, and all they do is talk about metrics and analytics, and they make decisions emotionally, even though they don't know it. But what happens is they make a decision emotionally, and then in microseconds, they find the data that justifies their decision and then give you the data and analytics that support their decision. And I'll bet all of you have been in situations in a company or in some kind of social circumstance where somebody who is in authority made a decision that you knew was not the right decision, but they made it just because they convinced themselves emotionally it was the thing they wanted to do, right? So we've all seen that happen, right? So, and it's because we make decisions emotionally first. I have a friend who works with people who have had traumatic brain injury. And some of the people that she works with have had the emotional center of the brain destroyed. So they function, they can talk, they can do all kinds of things, but they actually do not process emotion in the way that most of us do. And if she walks with one of those people to a supermarket and stands them in front of a case of orange juice, where there's 40 different kinds of orange juice, right? It's like with pulp, without pulp, sweetened, not sweetened, large, small, like cartons or jars or cans or glass, and says to one of these individuals, pick out the orange juice you would like for breakfast tomorrow morning. This individual will stand there for an hour unable to make a decision because those decisions are emotionally based and they don't have the emotional connection to a brand or a size or a flavor that allow them to make a decision. So we actually make decisions emotionally. The extent to which we can be sensitive enough to the authenticity of our real feelings, and I think that's really hard. I think that's really hard today. I think there's so much overlay, social pressure, and again, what I call the overdetermination of the way we are supposed to be, express ourselves, look, talk, speak, feel, respond to things, that I think most people don't even know what their real emotions are. But if we can get to that place, I think we are in a really good place to make good decisions for ourselves and for the people we love. The lawyer, I don't know if he ever found his purpose. I never saw him again. But I hope so.
We've been talking a lot this semester in the Empowered to Serve class about finding a way to knit the behavioral domains together instead of having ourselves silos. So how do we knit our psychomotor, our affective, our cognitive, and most importantly, probably that conative domain, that's the part that pushes us to strive and drive and reach those goals. And, you know, I say to students that it's sort of like we're each a piece of embroidery thread. And if you look at embroidery thread, there are really 5 little strands. It's not a thread, it's 5 strands. But lucky is the person who has figured out how to wrap those tightly so it looks like one thread. And I think that happens when the psychomotor, the affective, the cognitive, and that cognitive domain all come together for us. And just the other thing I wanted to mention, in the class, we also watched Steve Harvey's video about fried chicken. You know, he's really hysterical in that way. And he says, you know, your passion will find you if you get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so take the time to let it find you. You don't have to force it. And in his video, he says, if you're the person who does fried chicken the best, then fried chicken, you'll find a way to make a living and to make a life. So yeah,
I love the thread analogy. That's a very beautiful metaphor.
So we don't have too much time. In fact, we're right at 6 o'clock, but I would like to ask people to share with Adam, what's your takeaway? What do you have at 6:01 that you didn't have? I say this every day in my class, right? What do you have at 6:01 that you didn't have at 4:55?
Wait, do you really end your classes like this? Because that's how I end my classes.
Yeah, I do every time.
Fabulous, right?
Except today we did 30-second affirmations, where each person on the screen offered someone else 30 seconds of an affirmation. But so what are you taking with you at 6:01 that you didn't have at 4:55? And you can write that in the chat too, because it'd be kind of cool to have that big list, but also really if you'd like to articulate that.
I think we live in like a culture where if you're not on the right path right away, you're oftentimes seen as a failure. You're not a failure if you think you're found your purpose and you find out you're wrong. That just means that you are on your path to finding your purpose.
Thanks, Maddie. Anybody else? I'm seeing a lot of things in the chat, so.
When we first watched your video on finding your purpose in class, I think it was the third thing you said, who do you want to help? And I was like, there's so many people that I want to help, and there's so many things I want to do. And I started like going into this spiral. So I'm so glad that Kim asked that question about what do you do if you have a variety of and things that you want to do. So thank you for that big takeaway on you don't have to figure it out right now, and it could change over your lifetime.
I'm interested to start the informational interviews and see where that leads. I think that'll be a good use of my time post-graduation. I'll have some free time, so maybe I can fill it in with some interview and meeting requests.
Anybody else?
There we go. I put it in the chat, but as I mentioned when I talked before, just following the gravity and letting that take you to wherever your purpose is. Trusting your gut. I like that.
Yeah, I had a mentor who said to me one time, Alice, it's okay because most of life's a happy accident. Anybody else? Bethany, you want to talk to us a little bit and close things out for us? The light went out on you.
Yeah, the light just turned off. There hasn't been much movement. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Adam, for coming and talking to us today. And we really appreciate it. Thank you to all of the Slippery Rock students and all the non-Slippery Rock people that joined today. Yeah, thank you for this great presentation. It was amazing.
Well, it was so much fun for me. My takeaway is that you are all pretty awesome, and it's great to meet you all. And you're all going to do exactly what you're supposed to do, which is go out and make the world a better place. And so it's been a privilege. And Bethany and Alice, thank you so much for inviting me to be here.
It was a recommendation from my class. I said to them, you know, should we bring somebody? And they said, about that guy who did the story on the purpose. So
Well,
yeah,
thank
so
you, class, for
you.
inviting me. I appreciate that.
Great. Thanks, everybody. If
right.
you're interested in what we do at Slippery Rock, I'm happy to spend some time with you. I also would like to make sure I promised that I would pull names. And so I'm going to show you this cool spinner that we figured out how to use. So here we go. Are you ready? So the first person for a $25 gift card is, Bethany, can you help me by making sure we write this down so I don't forget? So Grace Ramsey, I think it is. So there were a couple of different Graces. So that's one. And here's another one. Oh, Maddie, there you go. And here's the last one. Oh, Kim, there you are. So the real prize is what you'll do with your life. The real prize is what you do for others. So be well and do well. Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye, Chris.
Okay, and Bethany and Alice, again, thank you so much.
It was great. Yeah,
I had a great time. This was really fun. And you have great people surrounding you. So how lovely.
That's why I don't go to work. I just go to school, right?
I'm with you.
Great.
Totally with you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate your time and your energy.
You're,
Be well.
okay, you too. Take good care. Have a good rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.